All right, guys, this phone is nothing short of fantastic. I gotta tell you, I started out, I think I said in the unboxing video that the US carriers would have problems if this phone hit the US or phones like this came to the US, and I definitely stand firm on that. This phone is so nice. It's amazing that you can get this phone for $200 or so. 6-inch display, 1080p, 20 megapixel with the 12 on the rear, 4 gig and 6 gig models, Snapdragon 660 inside, 3000 mAh battery, Android One. This is the Xiaomi Mi A2. I do have the Mi A1. I'll compare them side by side in another video, but for right now, this is about a week with this device. And let me start with the cameras. So the photos you're looking at here were just taken right at the recording of this video. You tell me what you think. I personally think that this phone has a fantastic set of rear cameras. A lot of phones employ the dual cameras on the rear with little, you know, if you don't have a telephoto lens or something like that, it's kind of hard to justify saying that those phones are great. But what I will say about this phone is just the overall quality that comes from the rear cameras. I'm super impressed. Now, that doesn't mean that there's some things that I just think are a little off, particularly the saturation. Now, I shot these photos in auto HDR. I'm going to try to do more tests later with HDR off because this phone saturates the photos way more than I thought it would, and I know this because I've compared it next to phones. And I thought, wow, this phone really does saturate a lot. But that's not a bad thing, because some people prefer a really saturated photo like that. Like, they really need to see the greens, they really need to see the blues, or you know what I'm saying? Like, so it's not a bad thing. So the cameras front and rear to me are great. Now, when I compared them next to the Mi A1 in a comparison, it looks like the Mi A1 had better cameras. But that's really just a preference. If you prefer one or the other, that argument or disagreement or battle could go on for hours. I think this phone has great cameras, and I will test them with other phones, preferably the Moto E5 Plus. I'm ready to put that one on the line and show you how that looks next to this one. But I really like the way the photos come out on with this phone. I'm really impressed with the camera so far, and people have said, you know, people who have this phone say, hey man, the batteries, I mean the cameras is fantastic, you know, and I don't disagree. So since I said battery, we'll step and talk about the battery. So this has a 3000 mAh battery inside, and it's a super thin phone, like really thin, but it does have a 3000 mAh battery inside. It's lightweight, only 166 grams, but 3000 milliamps is a big battery for a phone like this, or any phone pretty much. You just have to optimize the software and hardware together, and it'll be okay. But the Snapdragon 660 inside of here with that 3000 mAh battery is doing fantastic. I don't have any complaints about battery life on here. You should be able to easily make it through a day, up to a day and a half, depending on how your usage is. Now me, I can make it through about a day and a half, almost 2 days maybe, depending on what I'm doing, with between 4.5 to 6 hours of screen on time. That just depends. Now, if I were to hammer it home and just use it all the way through, I could easily get 7 hours or more of screen on time, because this battery life is really, really strong. But if you're just using it regularly, like not doing anything spectacular, you'll get at least a day and a half, or at least a day, I should say, hopefully, with about 4.5 to minimum 5 hours of screen on time. You should be able to pull that out of this phone, because it's actually really, really nice on battery life. Screen quality is something that I was talking about on the Moto E5 Plus video. You don't need a 1080p display, but by today's standards, all phones that are in this new body style and these new specs and processors, why not just give it a 1080p display? I don't know why some manufacturers are not doing so. But this phone does have a 1080p 6-inch display. They label it as 5.99, pretty much 6 inches. And you know, I like it. I really, really like it. There's no other way to say it. The quality is nice, although I can't tell the difference between this and a 720p display. It's still nice to have a 1080p display. So if I want to watch something in 1080p, at 60 FPS, I'll be able to do it. I'll have that option. But that doesn't make this a game changer. If it would have had a 720p display, I probably still would have picked it up, because I just like the Xiaomi devices. And having a stock Android phone, speaking of stock Android software, no problems. This is a fast phone. Now, I do have the 4 gig of RAM version, so you can imagine what the 6 gig of RAM version would be like with this stock Android experience. This is super fast, and not just, I don't mean super fast when scrolling through the menu. I'm talking about when doing things. I haven't experienced any slowdowns, any lag. The 600 series processor to me has always been the better processor of a lot of the Snapdragon processors, particularly the 625, because it's a tried and true processor and it has never failed me. So I'm thinking, you know, the Snapdragon 636 that's in my Asus Zenfone doesn't really perform as well. It's based on the 660, but having the 660 full blown, it's actually really good compared to the Asus Zenfone 5, which is one of my favorite and top phones. But this phone really feels buttery smooth, and the fact that it's Android 1 means it's going to get all the latest updates, and because my other Mi A1 got the latest updates, and hopefully it'll get P soon. And I'm really excited about having the Mi A2 because the software is great. But nonetheless, I have not had any slowdowns, any problems with the phone. It's been really good to me. I really love the screen. I really love the form factor. It's lightweight. I've had it inside of the case for the entirety of its life, and I don't really like cases, but since it's clear, this one still shows off that beautiful blue color. Now, it doesn't go without saying that, you know, they changed a few things that I've already spoken about. They took off the headphone jack, which was a surprise to me. But they still left the IR blaster, so I don't know what that's about, but you do get a little dongle in the box. But you know, you still have that fingerprint reader. You know, the speaker it's decent. You know, it's not going to win any awards, but it's still louder than most phones, so I don't think you'll be upset about sound quality from here. But this is about a week with this phone, and I think you'll like it if you pick it up. And another thing is, this one has more bands than my Mi A1. My global version of my Mi A1 had a few less bands. This one actually has all the necessary bands to use this in the US and not feel like you're gonna have an issue, because even though my Mi A1 doesn't have all the bands, it still works with LTE in the US, and I don't have a problem. But with this phone, there's absolutely no problems. You know, no problems with the bands. Now, it doesn't have band 66. It doesn't have those bands like that if you're on T-Mobile, but it does have band 2 and 4, and those are the main bands that you need. So, it's your man Jay Will. The Mi A2 is fantastic, man. No complaints so far. Stay tuned for more videos. Take care.